All right, we're back. The beef is in the oven with some broth and covered with tin foil at 325, where it's going to cook at least 2.5 hours. And in the meantime, I will talk to you about the other ingredients that you're going to need. You're going to need onion. Yellow onion works great. And then I like to use a variety of mushrooms. And remember, this recipe is originally Russian. Very old, by the way. It comes from the time of Ivan the Terrible. That's kind of a long story. I won't get into it, but it's a cool one. If you ever want to know more about it, read about that. But it was developed for him, so very old. Russians are avid and excellent mushroomers. Everybody I ever knew when I lived there knew how to hunt for and select mushrooms, and mushrooms form a big part of their cuisine. So when I make beef stroganoff, I don't like to use simply button mushrooms. I do use some button mushrooms like these, but I also like to use portobellos and shiitakes, and these are cremini mushrooms. And when I prepare mushrooms, I like to, again, float them in a tub of water, cool water. They are fertilized with pig droppings, which is sterilized, but nevertheless, you want to get that off your mushrooms. So these have all been washed. And then the other thing that I do with this type of mushroom, a portobello, I don't do it with any other mushroom, but I do like to take the fins out of the mushroom. And the reason I do that is because no matter what you make with these, this is going to create a lot of liquid and kind of a murky, muddy liquid that is not nice in anything that you put it in. So this is going to get discarded and not used. And then I'm just going to chop all of these up. This, or I should say slice, and then I'm going to cook them with the onions in butter until they are nice and golden brown. I don't know about you, but I was going to say I don't like the taste of a raw mushroom. I actually don't think they have a taste until you cook them, and then they become delightful. So I'm going to get the mushrooms going, and then I'll talk to you about your other ingredients. Alright, so where we are at this point is we've got the beef in the oven. I've got the mushroom sauteing. That takes a while because I like them to be really nice and golden brown, and I've got a lot over there. But I want to talk to you about proportions before I get on to the final ingredients. What you saw in that pan is a lot of meat. There are going to be 8 of us for dinner, and everybody I know loves beef stroganoff, so they eat a healthy portion. My friends are all healthy eaters in the first place. But let's talk about proportions since I'm not giving you an actual recipe. Whenever you're planning a meal that involves meat, you basically think of 4 to 6 ounces per guest. This particular meal is going over egg noodles, so it's not a light meal. So I kind of averaged it and figured 5 ounces per person. Mushroom-wise, mushrooms are very light, but I'm cooking up 3 pounds of mushrooms. That's a lot, but I'm thinking, again, 6-8 ounces per person. And then the rest of it is beef stock and sour cream, which is kind of to taste. When we get all done, I'm going to combine all the elements and dress it in the way that I think is nice. Obviously you can adjust the sour cream, but one thing that you want for sure is you want the final sauce to be able to coat the noodles and not just slip right off of them. So you need it to be a little bit on the thicker side. So the other ingredients, we have sour cream and dill. And I want to talk briefly about dill. Dill is an herb that I consider a finishing herb. I don't ever cook with dill in something. I think you lose that bright freshness that dill offers, and it just becomes wilted and kind of bitter. So this dill is not going to be cooked in the stroganoff. It's just going to be chopped fairly roughly and put on the very top, okay? And then the only other ingredients that I want to show you are my homemade egg noodles, because I'm very proud of them. Alright, so if you watched my previous video, I showed you how to make homemade egg noodles. Obviously, you don't have to go to all the trouble of making your own homemade egg noodles, but they're so delicious and they're really quite simple. And when people come to my house, I like to spoil them. I like to make sure that they are comfortable and absolutely fawned over. So I do go to the trouble to make my own homemade egg noodles. And that's it for ingredients. We've got egg noodles, we've got beef, mushrooms, the broth, and sour cream and dill. And we'll come back when the beef is done and I'll put everything together for you. Hi, okay, so we're back now after 2.5 hours. I have cooked the meat just like I would a pot roast. It's nice and tender. If I push it with my fork, I could push it apart, and yet it is not dry. I'm going to take it out and put it on this. I think I need a spatula. Uh-oh. We'll do this. I'm going to put it on this plate. So it can rest. That could have gone really wrong. And so now I'm going to, I've got the mushrooms over here, if you can see how beautifully brown those are. With the heat off, I'm going to add some flour to them. Not tons, but I'm basically going to make a gravy or sauce, pan sauce, with the broth from the pot roast, and I'm going to add it to the mushrooms. And we don't want the sauce to break, so we're adding a little bit of flour. That's enough. Alright, so now I'm going to turn the heat on the mushrooms. This big pan of gorgeous beef stock. And I'm going to pour it in there. I'm going to add it to here, but I have more control if it's in this measuring cup than if it's in that big thing. And I'm just going to add it little bit by little bit. Oh my gosh, I wish you could smell this. The smell is unbelievable. A little bit more. And so on, and we'll come back when I've got it fully incorporated and I'll show you the next step. Alright, so I have fully incorporated all the meat juices, and if you see, because I added that flour initially, essentially making a roux, you know, which is a fat and flour combination, my sauce is beautifully brown but not broken, and broken means when the fats separate from the other liquids in whatever it is that you're making. Never pleasant, not appetizing, not pretty to look at. All right, so I've got the mushrooms and the meat sauce. I have taken my beef roast and cut it into manageable sized pieces, but I don't like them to be in little tiny pieces. They should be in hunks. This is how they do it in Russia. I like that. And add that. Beautiful. And now the final thing, while it's in the pan, is we're going to add some sour cream. A healthy amount. It should be a noticeable flavor and lighten the sauce color quite a bit. That looks about perfect. Just need to stir it a little bit, which I will do on my own time, and I'll come back to you with a plate full of stroganoff for you to look at. Enjoy. All right, so we're back. I've got my homemade egg noodles below the beef stroganoff sauce, which looks pretty good. And I tasted it, it's delicious. So I have company coming. They're bringing an appetizer, and then we have dessert. But beef stroganoff is a pretty heavy meal, so I don't usually serve anything with it. This is it. But I am going to make some special drinks to go with the food, which I always kind of feel like the beverages are not as important as the food, but they're very important. So I think that I'm going to do a separate short video as a follow-up to this with some suggested drinks. So I have Russian friends who are following me on this channel, and so I have a special message to them. Во-первых, здравствуйте, я скучаю по тебе. Во-вторых, приятного аппетита, на здоровье. Bye.